And what I'll do is I'll actually just start recording now, so that way if anybody can't be on this call, at least they can capture the questions. Dropbox account. I just share a link and you should be able to download the files. You shouldn't need authentication for the actual Dropbox account. And what I'm sharing here is basically just a handful of my goodies that I've collected over the years. Some of the stuff that I've actually used, like study guides and references and some test questions. I pretty much uploaded all the stuff that I think you guys would be interested in to this Linux 3-in-1 folder. And you can dig through it, as much as you like. But I'm going to have another folder here, which I'm creating right now, which is I'm going to call Linux 3-in-1 documents, or let's go course files. Okay, and so what this specifically is going to be is, as you can see, I'm uploading this now. One, I have to upload the file from here, and then I got to turn around on my computer real quick and then send you guys the link, because I have everyone in a distribution list, so it's easier just to copy and paste the emails that way. But basically, I'm going to give you, you'll see here in a second. Even though I have this under the folder CompTIA, this course is really a combination of multiple certifications. So, and I want to explain the strategy for that coming up here. So it's the module by module, and you guys can have the teaser and the installing Linux. I may make some changes to these as we're going through this. But this is kind of a trial run here with this new curriculum. It's a new combined curriculum that captures Linux Plus, the LPI certification, which goes into more detail than the Linux Plus, and then the SUSE certification. So I'm overlaying, really 3 sets of curriculum in one module by module basis. So I'm going to give you guys the first 2 tonight, and then as I work on other ones, there's still a few things that I want to finish in module 3 and 4. Just the polishing, cleaning up. I have some notes in there I want to clean up. But basically, by the time you guys get this, as soon as I have them available, and you may have the teaser, but Tommy, I don't think that you have the module by modules. I had to create these based off of our last class, so they're in line with the last class that we did, but they're better. All right, so what I'm doing is as I teach each class, I make improvements and I make improvements. And those of you, thanks, Tommy. Yeah, you definitely got the teaser, but now we're going to go into installing. So I want to give you guys the overview of installing tonight, and kind of this is a twofold purpose here. It's a kickoff meeting basically. So a bunch of Q&A. I want to iron out anything that we need to iron out. And then 2, I want to get you guys the installing, and I want to show you some basics of how I have that organized and what's in the installing section, what the important parts are, and then really I want you guys to start going on town on this. A couple developments here real quick. Well, let me rewind for everybody that's on the call. Here's the big picture. Tommy, when did we start? It was like December, right? Isn't that when we started with the Wounded Warriors? Something like that? Like mid-December, early December? Wounded Warriors, you guys are on the call?
Yeah, I remember it was in December.
Yeah, it was like early mid-December. So for everybody else that's on the call, I want to share with you. While we traditionally call them Wounded Warriors, I assure you guys, these guys are not wounded any longer. You've got this is a combo class I'm doing, or I just call them warriors from at this point out. You have the warriors that are going to be jumping into this call for review to refine them skills and basically use this as a test prep course, and hopefully add a little bit of value that we didn't cover in our class. And then this class, in addition to what we did, I'm tying in the additional 2 certification. So we started this class at Walter Reed right around December time, and the class was going great. We were able to do a lot of stuff, got a lot of stuff going, and everybody else that's on this call that hasn't been able to share that experience, I want to let you know, man, you got some of the nation's top guys here on this call. And so I encourage participation, one, from the webinar that I did that brought in a whole nother group of private sector folks, and I want to bundle that with the Warriors, and I want you guys to leverage each other. I want you guys to create relationships, talk about stuff that you see in the industry, and you guys are going to get out of this course what you put into this course. So there's no shortage of expertise here, and there's no shortage of qualified people and people that are really just going down the rabbit hole of Unix. So welcome everybody to the call. Now this is the official call. You know, so we're going to do this course again, and we're going to make it better, and we'll probably do it again and again and again. And, you know, I'm one of those guys. It's like, you know, I taught CISSP some 200 odd times, and, you know, I'm just now starting to get good at it. So this is one of those courses where you know, it'll take a good 30 or 40 times before it's just bread and butter, and I've got all the tips and tricks and analogies and cheat sheets and study guides and test questions and blah, 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 blah. But this class is also mature enough where it is right now to where, I mean, you guys really are ready to go to town on this thing. So I've uploaded this. Now all you guys need is for me to share the files to you. So hang tight. I'm going to turn around, touch that computer, and everybody that got the GoToMeeting link in 20 seconds is going to get a link to the Dropbox. So hang tight here. All right, so if you guys could check your emails. And let's spend a little time just kind of going over the Dropbox. So when you guys get access to it, just if you wouldn't mind letting me know. All right, so brochure, okay? Thanks, Jason. So I got a couple things in the brochures. These are just different types of brochures that I collected. The things that I've used from here are basically the outlines and the test objectives of the course, and this is what I use to actually develop courseware to align it to the actual certifications. So just a variety, thank you. So just a variety of, random brochures. Some of them from LPI, some of them, probably just some random stuff you would find on the internet. Next, I have the course files. In the course files, this is where I put the module by module, and as I, polish them up, I'm going to, start working them. I'm probably up to, well, actually, I'm done the first draft through all of them, but there's a few things I want to change from module 4 through 16. So as I update those, thank you, Eric, I want to, get those, so they will be in this folder, so you can always look in here for the latest and greatest. So if you want to start working ahead in the course, that's where I'm going to put the stuff. Then we have the Linux folder in here. I got a couple of sample chapters of things. Really, you guys probably won't spend too much time in there. Then I have what I have for LPIC, everything from study guides to exam essentials, glossaries. I'm working on this lab possibilities document of, different things to cover. I've got a couple mind maps that I've started working on. Skill inventories. This is good, especially for those of you that are wanting to test. Some of the people in the class will not be testing for whatever reason. Other people are just here to pick up some skills. Other people are here to get certifications. People are actually to make money. I do have a skill inventory, so if you want to crank that open, I did send the link, Pam. Yeah, I did send the link, so it might take a second to come back in, and in 20 seconds or 30 seconds, I'll check to see if I got any bounces, just so that you guys can have the latest and greatest. Okay, so Pam says she's got it. These LPI study guides here, these are actually really helpful documents as well. These are just straight up hardcore exam prep for specific LPIC study guides. But the cool part is they got lots of stuff in here. So what I did is I kind of took some of the things that were highlighted in here that weren't in the Linux Plus course and added them. So for those of you that have taken my Linux Plus course, there's going to be lots of new stuff in this course that's not in that course. Okay, and so once you get past the big outline, the command references and things like that, you can come down here and I want you guys to see, basically how to go through stuff. So they go over the basics, they describe things. I'll address that one second, Mike. How to do commands. So the purpose of this document is literally you can just go through and sit and go, date, and then put the date in. Do a hardware clock, local time, do a hardware clock UTC. So these serve the purpose of let's get through the hands-on and let's just do command after command after command after command after command. These commands serve two purposes. One, stuff that you would actually use in the real world, and then two, some of the stuff is somewhat academic as well. So some of the stuff that themes out, you'll see what I mean when we actually get to it. I've incorporated most of this stuff in the actual documents that I shared that I'm keeping in the courseware folder, which is 3-in-1 course files, right? So you don't have to use those Linux Plus study guides, but if you want a different, you want to see what LPI puts out, you're more than welcome to dig through those too. They actually might just be a good test prep. So, Michael, which test do we have to take in order to acquire the 3 certs? You have to take 2 tests. Here's the way this is going to work. LPI.org. So this Linux certification here, you are going to take 2 exams from CompTIA. When you register for those exams, you will be prompted with a form during registration in which you can engage in the LPI partner program. Absolutely, without a doubt, agree to that. All right, because basically, as soon as you get your Linux Plus certification, you're going to get another one in the mail from LPI, and then another one from SUSE. And so it's these partnership programs that actually make this actual possible, and how to get those 3 certifications in one. It's really only taking the 2 CompTIA tests, but because you pass them, LPI will honor Linux Plus, and SUSE honors LPI. So it's kind of like each other honoring each other's stuff. So all I had to do really to come up with a 3 combo in one is figure out how much more in depth does the LPI go, and then let's go to that depth level, and then 2, throw in some SUSE stuff. Now, I didn't want to just leave it at that. I actually wanted to put my 2 cents into this course, and so what I did at the end of each document, like let's go to installing Linux, right? If you can, go to the Dropbox links and open up the installing Linux section. And I'm going to scroll literally all the way down to the end, the very, very last page. I have a little section here called Pen Tester's Notebook. And some of you actually joined the course just for this section alone, which is cool. I'm going to refine this as I think of new things to add to it, and this is like my cheat sheet or my crib notes from the pen tester's point of view. So just for example, after we talk about today and what we go over, here's the pen tester stuff that I want you guys to think about, or what does a pen tester look for. If you've been thinking about becoming a pen tester, you need to know the pen testing versions of the software and tools. Learn tools like Metasploitable, BART, PE, Kali, Backtrack, and other pen testing operating systems. You also need to know how to install databases for collecting information for your tools like Nmap and other reconnaissance tools, because everything now in running your reconnaissance tools is all being dumped to a database and database driven, so you can point Metasploit to the database and import it. So it's literally a whole new way of thinking about penetration testing, where we used to do things very, very manually. Now things are all the reconnaissance tools that we do all get logged to a database, and you just point Metasploit to the database and then import all of our vulnerability scans, our Nessus scans, our Nmap scans, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So other things that you're going to want to start installing are tools like AirCrack, SSL Scan, NIC2, Ether8, and so you can start by getting a feel for the pen tester's operating system, and the one of choice as of right now, the latest and greatest, is the Kali operating system. So I put my little 2 cents and my spin on this course as well. So I hope you guys enjoy that, and I absolutely encourage participation about that, because you may trigger a whole thought pattern and go, well, Leo, what about this? And then I can go, oh, you know what, you're right, let's add that. And then the cool part about this is everybody in this course is now a beneficiary of what we did in the previous course, and the next course, any contributions that you guys make, I'll capture, and then we'll add that to the next course as well. All right. Back to this. It goes off of the SUSE partnership and the CompTIA partnership. All right, so basically these are the CompTIA exams that you guys are going to be taking. CompTIA has phased out their Linux Plus exam and have adopted the LPI 1 exam as the entry-level certification called CompTIA Linux Plus powered by LPI. Yeah, specifically when you register for the exam, you will see powered by LPI. It's different than the LPIC exam, because the LPIC exam does go into a little bit more detail and is a little bit harder. However, then there's the SUSE partnership as well. So LPI is pleased to announce, blah, 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 to apply for SUSE certification, all you need to do is fill out the form at the Novell, and I believe you just click on that right there, and then basically fill out your stuff, enter your LPI your verification code, wait 4 to 6 weeks, and then you'll get another certification in the mail. So the cool part about this course is you guys are now going to pick up 3 certifications instead of 1. Questions? unless you guys actually live in Japan, and that only should affect one of us. And that just simply means that you're gonna. I don't know why they're not available in Japan, or what are they got against the Japanese? I don't know. But it just means do the paperwork from another country or your home country, and I'm sure you'll be fine. All right, so that's that. All right, so before we jump into this, any questions? I know you guys got some questions, so let's go ahead and ask them. Another thing that came up during my phone calls with everybody while I was getting everybody to register for this is money. Some of you want to make money. And now, the teaser that I did for the conference call, I referenced two websites, okay? One of them is odesk.com, and then the other is elance.com. And I showed you how we could search for, I'll talk about that in just 1 second, Pam. Actually, I just lost my train of thought.
Money.
Money, thank you. You can go to Odesk and Elance, and you guys can actually make money. So this is great for anybody who is either underemployed or jobless.
Not employed.
Not employed, yeah. You can make some significant coin. I tend to use Odesk myself for hiring people more so than I do for looking for part-time work, but there is no shortage of jobs that people have posted on Odesk. Now, it's all contract work. You basically set up an Odesk or an Elance account. You go in, you apply for different jobs and positions. You kind of have to sell yourself a little bit, but as long as you can deliver on the good, then I would certainly apply for that. And so what I am offering to do, or the strategy behind the money and the jobs, yes, Odesk.com and Elance.com. I want to have a contest. I want to see who can rake in the most cash. I want to see, I don't really know. I can't make it a financial award because you're actually getting paid through Odesk and Elance. So I can't, other than just simply having a contest, I can't really figure out, what the benefit is. But, bragging rights, let's see who can rake in the most money. Now there will be some people in this course that aren't interested in more money because they're already, full-time at work, full-time PhD programs. There's a few PhDs that are going to be in this training that just want to see how I'm doing it or why I'm doing it or why I'm doing it my way, this way. Sure, you can come into my office and I'll give you plenty of volunteer work, Tommy. You can work for we'll work for food. all the food you can eat, man. Is that fair? So we'll talk more about that, the Odesk and the Elance, but I just want to point those out again, that those are there. And what I'm offering to you guys is, if you're a little hesitant on how to bid for jobs or how to look for jobs, you guys can send me the jobs, and I will basically say, yes, this is something I'm comfortable doing. You take the job, and if you need a lifeline, you can call me, and I'll help you through it. And that'll build your confidence, and let's start slow, and then we'll build up to larger style contracts. Because some of them are like $10 an hour, some of them, have budgets of like $5,000. So my promise on the teaser webinar that I did is, I said, do you want to make 10 to 12% more? Well, it's in Baltimore, Maryland, in an underground bunker in a nondescript building, man. You know how it is. Tommy, I could tell you, but you know how that works, right? I lost my train of thought completely again. I'm laughing at you guys. No, let's have a contest. I'll help you guys through the job board, and if it's something that I can do, or if I think you guys are getting in over your head, I'll say don't take that job, don't apply because you're getting yourself in over your head. But I'll play phone a friend, and if you guys need help, we want to talk about some stuff. If I can walk you through something, I'll be happy to help you guys earn some extra cash. In case you're new to me teaching, I want to state that I'm very, very big in hands-on. I don't believe getting certifications just for the sake of getting certification in something. I do believe in being able to walk the walk. Because I don't believe the world needs more certified people. I believe that if you can do this stuff and you're also certified, great. But if you're just going after it just for the sake of, hey, I'm certified, that doesn't really help anybody. All right. So let's jump into this. All right. So installing Linux. The first section of each document, I'm basically going to have basically an index and tell you the basics. For right now, I have questions in the code of learning.
Are we going to get these?
Yes, I will set everybody up with access to those. So I think I have I have to double check the count, but I think it's like 900 test questions just for Linux in itself. So okay. That's a lot. So it's a little overkill. I've even written my own test questions. A lot of them were written by myself. A handful of them were questions that I collected just for the sake of having a framework of a question, and then I elaborated on that framework to really tailor it to like what we try to do in the classroom. All right. Let's talk about YouTube and XBMC. Okay. Let's talk about that first. If you have not played with XBMC yet, you're going to want to. I literally know people that have stopped paying their cable bill and just literally use XBMC for anything that they possibly want. I can't go into full screen mode. If you guys are on the call, could you mind muting if you're not going to talk? I want you to talk, but I get a little feedback in my headset if you guys don't mind. But please, again, I encourage participation. So XBMC is an application that you can install, and basically it's a front end that connects to different video sites, and you can watch videos through this interface. All right. So you can download it here, XBMC. Click on downloads, and the specific add-on that you'll need is the YouTube add-on, because then you can search any of my YouTube videos or anything that I do via YouTube that I will be uploading on my YouTube channel. You'll be able to actually follow along. So the XBMC is really just a front-end interface that makes watching a little bit easier, and it cuts out a lot of the advertisement and overhead of YouTube. So that's really the only reason I use it. And it's available on Linux and Windows and Android, etc., etc., etc. So please check out xbmc.org and then connect to the YouTube channel. And you can just simply search for my name and I will come up, which is kind of cool because it's like watching Leo TV. It's kind of a little novelty factor. The first time you see yourself on like Leo TV, you're just like, I look like an idiot. That's really me. So I don't know. It's just one of those things, guys. All right, so each section has an objectives and a module flow. The module flow is basically the same every single module except for this second bullet right here. So we're going to do an overview. I'm going to cover the material. Then I want you to do the hands-on. Follow up the hands-on with the test questions, which will, for right now, be either in these documents or at my site. And then support. Support means contact Leo. Okay? You guys can call me. You guys can email me. You can send a telegram, smoke flare. I don't care how you guys contact me. If you need help, you must ask, because I do not read minds yet. I'm working on an app for that, though. Optimal time, okay? You want to be able to go through this document in 10 minutes or less. This optimal time clause is literally perfection. So if you are ready to take your test, you should be able to go through this document in 10 minutes or less, and you should be able to go through, do the test questions at the end, review all of the hands-on, review anything in here in 10 minutes or less. The first time that you go through these documents, I do not expect it to be 10 minutes. It's probably going to be hours, in some cases days, to review all of the material that I have in here. But when you're prepping for an exam, literally you should be like, yep, got that, next, that's right, oh, don't forget that, and just basically flipping pages and going over it. When you can do that for each one of these modules, once you get to module 16 and you can flip through each one in 10 minutes or less, you are ready to take the exam. That's how I've designed this. All right, so background here. We're going to have to install Linux today, and we're going to get to that here in a second. First thing we have to think about is HFS, which is Hierarchical File Systems. Not every operating system and its storage format is the same. They're different. Okay, so you're not going to store things in a database the way you would on a file system, the way you would on a storage area network, the way you would store things on a NAS, the way you would store things on a Windows version 4, version 2000, 2003, 2000. There are different versions of file systems. The commonality in the Linux file systems is that they all use the hierarchical file system format, or at least the ones that we're using nowadays. Okay. There are going to be plenty of different versions of Linux that we will cover. We're not going to install every operating system out there. You simply need to install Linux enough times so that you can do it on your own. Yes, HFS versus, actually it's, wait, what is it? HFS? Here in Baltimore, we have a radio station, HFS, so now I'm double guessing it. But it's a hierarchy of file system, but now you got me double guessing myself. Nah, it's not going to work. Yeah, file system hierarchy standard is what it actually stands for. So it is FHS. All right, so that's the commonality here. That really won't play into things when you're installing. It's not like you're going to click a button that says, FHS. But the way the Unix, the commonality in the Unix file systems, more, if you're installing Unix, you need to understand that. The different flavors of Unix, you have things at the server level. You can use Unix for servers. You can use Unix for desktop computers and users, like Ubuntu is a very, very, very common desktop environment. Even Fedora is kind of like a Red Hat version. It's a desktop version of Red Hat. Or completely at the server level, like Red Hat gets a lot of respect for that. You have how many people on the call have actually used Red Hat? Quick show of hands, or running it now. Okay, I got one running it now. One says no. There are certain things that are different on Red Hat versus other Unix systems, but I do cover a handful of Red Hat in here. I basically just point out what's different. We're not really going to be spending too much of time on Red Hat. The reason being is that the Red Hat certification is its own beast, and I cannot overlay, at least not yet, I haven't figured out a way, to overlay Red Hat onto all of this. If I figure out a way, I'll do it later on, but right now, 3 certifications in one, plus a couple other operating systems, that was a mouthful. Yep, running Kali, Red Hat, BSD, and the VMs will be fine. As a matter of fact, everything that we're going to be doing here is going to be in a VM, and that's what I'm going to show you guys today, how to set up your own lab environment at home and how to go to town on the installs. So I'm literally going to show you this today. But at the end of this call, you will know how to leave here, install the Linux basically in a VM. So it really doesn't matter at this point if you install a server, a desktop, but also keep in mind that you can use Linux on non-computer based systems. Okay, you can has anybody ever sat at a bar and played that gaming console? Right, where you play poker and chase the horse and all that stuff. It's like a total pick your game. They always have it at the end of the bar in a handful of places. Yeah, exactly. Well, that runs on Linux. That's basically a networked PC that simply runs a gaming interface. So there are non-traditional computer environments where Linux has been fighting to get into that market. Another one that's really popular right now that Linux is really going after hard to try to get this market is the airport terminals, the arrivals and departures board that you see in I don't go to too many bars. I just happen to notice weird things when I actually am in a bar. I haven't had a drink since before I got on the call. So, just joking. Actually, I don't even know when that's the problem, right? You get sucked into this computer world, and I couldn't even tell you guys when I've had a drink. Maybe I need to have a drink. And the rule with drinks are if you come to my city, I buy you a drink. If I'm in your city, or if you're in my city, you buy me a drink. If I'm in your city, you buy me a drink. So I'll be happy to take you guys up on that offer.
That's a great rule.
Yeah, that's right. It's heads I win, tails you lose, right? All right. So understanding the different distributions. I saw a comment float by about CentOS, so let me jump back to that. How does CentOS fall into this group? You can use it. There's nothing to stop us from using that. I don't particularly cover it, but it's definitely one of the more popular operating systems out there. I'm personally not really a big fan of that, simply for what I use Unix for. I use Linux for, and I say Linux and Unix interchangeably. I really, it's just a generic term or set of words. Everything is blend oriented. I personally don't use CentOS just because I got myself in a whole bunch of other products in software, so I just really probably don't spend as much time in this as I probably could or should or would like to. But you get to a certain level, I don't even care if I use CentOS or not. It makes no difference. I can sit down at any Linux computer and just do what I need to do and figure out what the differences are, because it gets to a point where they're all interchangeable. It's like the Matrix, right? Eventually, you just see the code. You don't even pay attention to whether you're on this version or that version. The biggest challenge that you guys are going to have is not necessarily the operating systems, just the desktop environments, because GNOME is different than KDE, which is different than XFCE. So really, the challenge comes in: which one are you going to be? Do you like XFCE? Do you like KDE? Or do you like GNOME? I personally, my comfort level is in GNOME. I just seems to be what I end up spending the most time on. I do use this computer that I'm on, dual boots from Windows to, let's see, what did I install? I installed Ubuntu Studio. Ubuntu Studio comes with an XFCE interface, which is your desktop environment, and then I migrated off of XFCE, and I put GNOME on it. So I went back to GNOME just because that's what I end up teaching most of the time. And I use Ubuntu Studio because it's got all the video editing software and things like that I tend to use. I also added the Kali Linux distribution to that. So not only can I do a whole video editing operating system and audio and things like that, but I also have all of the pen testing. So what I did is I took a desktop version, I changed my desktop from XFCE to GNOME, and then I added in the Kali toolkit to the existing editing tools. I could have went in the Kali direction and just added in the Ubuntu Studio tool suite. I could have done that too, and effectively got the same functionality out of the operating system. But actually, I had never migrated XFCE to GNOME, so I was like, all right, well, let's try it. And it wasn't that bad. A couple reboots later, worked fine. So at some point, yeah, GNOME is basically your desktop environment. Think of it as like, Windows XP versus Windows 8, right? Just it's still Windows. It's just different desktop environments. Exactly. So I just don't want to say shell and you guys leave that as like just command line, because it's a little bit more than command line stuff. It is your desktop environment, so things different. But we could certainly add CentOS to this, and I probably can answer your questions about that too. It's a shot in the dark. I know if I know it, I know it. If I don't, I don't. All right. So distributions. Let's talk about distributions for a little bit. You've got Ubuntu. For those of you who just joined the call, we had a couple more people join the call. I did send out a Dropbox link that has all the files, particularly this one that I'm covering. So if you want to check your Dropbox in your email and follow along with me, you guys are more than welcome to do that. Otherwise, if you want to pick up the rest of what you missed on the call, all you got to do is watch the first, half hour or something like that of it, and you really didn't miss much. We were just kicking off basically a training. So understanding the distributions, right? Quick show of hands. Has anybody used Ubuntu? Or just say yes or no in the chat dialog box. Great. Pam, what I want you to do is I want you to install Ubuntu, the desktop. I want you to install it in a VM. That'll be good homework for you. And if nobody's used Ubuntu, this is what I would want you to do. Whatever ones of these that you don't know, that's where I want you to spend your time installing in the virtual environment. So if you've never installed Ubuntu, it's not really any different than any of the other installs, but just go get that distribution, and I'll show you where to get that at the end of the rest of this. Most videos that you're going to watch on YouTube that have to do anything with Linux, they're actually Ubuntu versions if you pay attention, right? Fedora. Anybody use Fedora? And I'm just going to pop open some websites here just to give you guys an idea. FedoraProject.org. Okay. If you've never installed this, download it. Specifically, any of the ones that you download, you guys are going to need the ISO format. Now, you can download these ISOs, and you can use CD burning software and convert the ISO to a physical CD, which to me, and nowadays in the world, is cumbersome, and I don't do that because I just have a collection of ISOs. So just to give you guys an idea, what I ended up doing is I have a terabyte drive here, 2 terabyte drive, and let's say is it here? And I actually have all of the latest and greatest downloads. Total size is 6.5 gigabytes. I do have space in my Dropbox account where I could give these to you, but I'm not going to. And here's why. You guys need to know how to do this on your own. All right, you're not going to have Leo to hold your hand here forever, so you're going to need to, if I say go install whatever, you need to know how to go find the vendor, search Google, right? Go to the vendor's website, click on the downloads, download the ISO. That's simple. The only challenge to that is really the processor type. Is it like x86 or is it AMD or whatever the case is? Okay, so I do have those here, plus the VMware. We're going to be using VMware Player here. And, just to give you guys a little bit of history, I've got like Backtrack version 3, which I don't even use anymore, but if that doesn't show you how long I've been doing this, I don't know what does. And I've got the Kali Linux, I got the Red Hat images, I've got SUSE, I've got Fedora, I've got hacking images, I've got Windows images that we can point to and run commands against. Because again, I tend to do more penetration testing style classes than anything else. We got Debian, we got CentOS, we've got this one operating system called Linux Victim, which I don't even know that you can get that anymore. But that specifically is in a virtual PC image. And different versions of Ubuntu, and what I used to do is I used to actually get the CDs. If you go to these vendor websites, in some cases they'll send you the CDs for free if you request them, only by request. In other cases, you have to pay some nominal fee. I don't do that anymore simply because it's a waste of time. Yes, you have the CD, and it's helpful to have, but as soon as new version comes out, those CDs are useless, and you end up with a pile of CDs, and only Michael Redman is actually still installing things by CD. So, what are we going to do with that one? All right. So Fedora, SUSE, Debian, Slackware, and here's my pen testing notes. You basically want to the way that we do things nowadays. It's Kali. Kali's, it seems to be where the future is at least for the short time being. That's the image, and if you wanted to download that, all you would have to do is search for Kali Linux, or just any operating system version, Fedora Linux, and you will find within the first couple links here, how to actually download that. So again, here are your ISOs. You click download, wait a little while. You do have to choose 64-bit or 32-bit, and then if you want to do it via torrent, that's up to you. I don't use torrents just because I don't. But then there's mini ISOs as well. These are limited, scaled-down versions of the operating system, like for bootable CDs and things like that. But I want you to get familiar with this stuff, right? So, and they also have like how-to documentation. We'll come back to this type of stuff because I'll show you a better way to dig through and find this. So rather than going to the vendor's website and trying to dig through their stuff, I'll show you how to use some advanced searching tools and get you the answers to your questions a lot more efficiently than actually digging through each vendor's equivalent. So basically, Kali's is where it's at. I use VMware. VMware Player. Here are my thoughts on the virtual software. So let me see here. Is it VMware software? Okay, so I used to use VMware Server, VMware Workstation. I used to register it, get the latest and greatest versions of that, and that kind of changed. And the reason being is like, well, one, you have to buy the license for this stuff, and the Linux people are the cheapest people in the world, and I say that as a nice thing. We never want to pay for things. It's just the nature of the game. If Michael, we are some cheap people, right? It's just the nature of the game. If you can get it for free, or you know how to do it for free, or you know how to do it in open source land, why spend the money, for the equivalent experience? Just, it's a no-brainer. So instead of buying the VMware software, what you can actually do is just install the free VMware Player, and everything that you can do in here that you'll need to do at home, you can realistically do from VMware Player. You are spending a fortune on VMware Player on several PCs, and it's free, dude. Well, free for commercial use. That depends on what you define as commercial use. I'm demonstrating tools, not necessarily using this in a production environment. I'm not hosting my own servers on Linux. I'm not using this in a production environment, right? If you do want to use this stuff in a production environment, I would always say, especially if it's for somebody else's, company, follow all laws and regulations. So VMware player download. All right, so we're going to search for that. Download my VMware. But Tommy does have a good point. Yeah, VMware Workstation or Server, yes. You will spend a fortune on that, which is can you accomplish it with VMware Player? Probably. For the learning in this class that we're going to do, VMware Player will be absolutely more than fine. So all I did here is search for VMware Player. I'm going to copy this to the chat dialog box in case you guys don't like searching Google yourself. You just want to click on the link, that's fine with me. All I did was search for VMware Player Download and then scroll to the bottom of the list, and you will see, where is it? It should be all the way at the bottom. Yeah, VMware Player here, and then you will be able to download that. All right, so download product. All the rest are trial versions. This is the only free version of that. And furthermore about licensing, we are using a testing environment, which in truth be told we actually are. So I wouldn't go run Kali as a desktop server somewhere. I think that would probably be a bad idea. Not for licensing reasons, but more so for performance reasons. Desktops are designed for desktop use. Servers are designed for server use. And you'll see this. What we did in the Warrior class was, as soon as we started getting into, well, what we did is we decided to switch over from GNOME or Debian to Kali, and I got them to use the Kali operating system to get them familiar with that. When we started to get into the networking issues like NFS and Apache and et cetera, there's limitations, right? It's not the Kali image is not designed to be a network server. You can add all that feature back in, but it takes some time. You're better off picking a server version of something like Ubuntu server or whatever it is and actually using the server product, okay? Otherwise, you'll spend a lot more time just reversing all the stuff that they've taken out from the server to the desktop. You're just going to end up adding it back in. So don't waste your time. Just go get the server version of it, right? Like, for example, go to Ubuntu server download. Okay, download Ubuntu server. First link. Yeehaw. All right, come down here. They're now at version 12.4. You can probably get some of the older, or actually 13.10 is actually out. But that's not the latest and greatest release, so the 12.4 is for another month, and then they'll probably get the 3.10. My dual booted system is actually on 13.10 though. So you just download it from here. Okay, very simple. Okay, and then also Metasploitable. This is another thing. This is more of my pen testing 2 cents here, but very, very important for you guys to realize. Hey, this is out there. Metasploitable. If you search for that, you can go to you see a bunch of links here for that. This is basically an operating system that is the counterpart to the Kali image. It's basically you can kind of use it for offensive and defensive. Can't find Leo Dregier on XBMC. Did you add the YouTube plugin in? You get that YouTube plugin, Tommy? You have to search you have to load the YouTube component of it, and then from there, then you search YouTube basically for Leo Dregier, or you can just search YouTube. But yeah, Tommy, I'll come back to that, and I'll help you. Or let's work out a band here, and I'll help you get XBMC up and run. Yeah, well, you know. Mike, Michael O'Donnell. There's 2 Mikes on the call. Michael Redmond and Michael O'Donnell. So there's you kind of can't help this stuff. You have to make a choice in your career. Are you going to be a pen tester or not? And it is one of those things where it's like you will spend the rest of your career learning the force, okay? It is not something you dabble in. It's something you choose to do, and you got to go down the rabbit hole, and it's a no turn back. It's literally red pill, blue pill type stuff. And so a couple of years ago, I was like, I can't tinker with this. And I'm even frustrated at myself a little bit because there's so many things happening in the pen tester world. It's almost really, really hard to keep up with this stuff to the point where it frustrates me. Once it's like what I did is I went through the Kali image and exported every single tool to a spreadsheet, started going over every single tool one by one. There was like 900 and some odd tools. By the time I got comfortable with that, new version comes out. Learned it all over again. It got 102 more tools, new version comes out. And it's to the point where it's like, oh shoot, this is even painful for my learning curve. And I have a very significant learning curve. I learn stuff super, super quick, but when it's changing faster than I can keep up, it's one of those things you have to choose to do it or not. So I try to stay on the latest and greatest, but it feels like a losing battle sometimes. Right, Vader. All right, so offensive security. Metasploitable. All right, you might want to check out Metasploitable as well because this is a great vulnerable victim. I sometimes use Metasploitable. It's a great target, but if you notice my software in the VMware here, I've got all of these old operating systems that I do not patch. So I've got, if you guys realistically want, a Windows 2000 server that hasn't been patched in 12 years, I've got images for that stuff. All right. All right. So let's jump back over here. All right. So licensing. Let's recap on licensing model. Specifically for exam purposes, you're going to need to be able to define the different licensing models that this is just a generic conversation about licensing real quick. Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. Closed sourced. We all identify closed source software. Just think Microsoft or any vendor-specific product where they do not release the source code along with it. iTunes, Photoshop, the list goes on and on and on and on. So I'm only trying to get you the idea there. In the open source world, you have GPL and LGPL. So, hey, I don't know what that is. Let's go figure it out. All right, so wiki, just type it. You want to define something, a really quick way to get the quick 50,000-foot view on something, just type in wiki and whatever you want, GPL. All right, and here you go, general public license. Please do not think that you need to read 50 pages of Wikipedia to get the idea here. 99% of the time, which is why I'm actually showing you this, I don't need to read beyond the first paragraph or the first two paragraphs. So GNU, General Public License. All right, so most of the times just listed as GPL, is the most widely used free software license. It guarantees end users, individuals, organizations, and companies the freedom to do whatever they want with, use, study, copy, share, or modify the software in any way that they see fit. It's basically free software in that sense. GPL grants the recipients of a computer cram the right to the free software definition. So there's a big push for people that go into this concept of free software. So again, Linux people, we're cheap, we like free stuff. 99% of what we're going to do is probably going to fall under this GPL. If you really want to read all of the history of GPL and the different versions of it, the terms, the conditions, the derivations, the legal status, etc., 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 this course is not for you. I'm just going to be that honest. Save yourself the time. I am not going to read this whole thing. So LGPL, okay? This is a it's probably either to go to the the actual page for this. So think of it this way. This actually is a good summary of it. The Free Software Foundation all created LGPL, which is nearly identical to GPL, but with additional permissions to allow linking for the purpose of using libraries. So later on, we're going to talk about libraries and the value of those, or anything in the lib directory in the file system. You have extra rights there, so you can add in your own stuff, you can tweak it, you can add it, and you can distribute it on your own. If you want to create the Michael O'Donnell operating system and call O'Donnell Linux, guess what, guys? You can do it, right? If Tommy wants his own version of this, guess what? You can make your own, you can put up your own server, you can get your own mirror set out, and you can literally do your own project. Nothing stops you. It's free. The third major category is basically when it comes to applications like PHP, Apache. Actually, I have PHP twice there. So what's PHP? Who can tell me about that? Oh, don't want it that way. Let's try to get a little feedback. What do you guys know about PHP? If you were thinking anything else other than server-side, specifically, Michael, server-side scripting language, as opposed to client-side, that's the 50,000-foot view. All right, so good question, Pam. You have client-side scripting languages and server-side scripting languages. And let's see if I can't get a quick list here. I'm going to categorize these. So here's a great picture. Okay, so client side runs on your computer, your desktop, your web browser. It's scripts that run on the end client. The other flip side of that is the server side. So this is scripts that run on the web server. So when we say server-side programming, I want you to think interactive websites. So if you've ever used eBay for checkout, you've used server-side scripting and may not even thought about it. If you've ever registered on a checkout, like when you registered for my site, you were interfacing with server-side scripting. So it's scripts that run on the server. Now, from a pen tester's mindset, that's huge in the difference. Okay, especially, are you trying to attack a desktop operating system or are you trying to attack a server? With the concept of server-side scripting, from the pen tester, what we want to do is we want the server to execute code for us and process that. The countermeasure that the web server or the web administrators are always trying to do is they're always trying to do input validation, right? They want to make sure anything that gets sent to the server's only processing things that they should process and no more. And, that's, it prevents buffer overflows, prevents SQL injection, prevents cross-site scripting, request forgery, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Other types of attacks focus on the client side. So this is anything that ends in the word script, JavaScript, ActiveX, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and I'm sure there's a dozen more I could think of. So server-side scripting is a technique used in website design which involves embedding scripts as HTML source. Michael, can I click on your links here or are you going to get me in trouble? All right, just check. Because he's probably, he could be sending me a remote SQL injection attack, and Michael's, he's on the call. He's one of my pen testers and does a whole bunch of the cool stuff for me all the time. Excellent instructor as well. What is this? Bob's site? Mallory site? Evil's site? Authentication stealer? JavaScript authentication stealer. All right, well, you're denied, buddy. A member of Bob's site saying, hey, check out some cute puppies. And there you go. All right, so you got keep you guys. Michael Redman, watch out for this guy. He's there to steal all of your passwords, and if anybody's missing a wallet at the end of this, it's probably Michael's. That's right, he's the one that's going to have it. So PHP is server-side scripting. These are things as opposed to the Windows equivalent of this. Does anybody know the Windows equivalent? What's the most popular Windows equivalent server-side scripting? Michael, don't answer this. Who knows? What works on Windows in server-side scripting? No, not MySQL. That's close. MySQL is actually a database query language that will actually get to the server-side scripts. SQL is a Windows database query language that'll get to the server-side scripts. You guys are getting closer. Think Windows server-side scripting. Anybody? Michael can answer this. You guys got how to get to the server, but you didn't get the scripts that run on the server. Who can tell me? No, that's another database. You guys are on the databases. This is it's not database 2. That's how, that's the session layer. That's how do we actually get there. Microsoft, ASP.NET, and CGI. Make sense? Those are the scripting languages on the Windows side of things. There's a couple others. So think of CGI for Windows or ASP.NET is equal to PHP on Apache. There you go. All right, so all that, .NET stuff, that's server-side stuff, interactive websites for Windows. All right, so this other category here, you have things like PHP, Apache. They have their own slightly different license model of them. You can't do anything that you want to with Apache. And they do, you really have to dig into, Apache license to really read that because it's not as free as people would like to believe, although it is the most popular open source web server. Other categories here, freeware versus shareware. There's Creative Commons and public domain. All right, these are easily terms that you guys can look up. If you look them up, you will remember them. But again, just something as simple as the first paragraph or two in, that's right here. First paragraph or two in Wikipedia is actually probably more than enough. And I'm just checking the course book real quick. Creative Commons would cover things like what's listed here is documentation, books, articles, videos, songs, and so forth. You actually can search Creative Commons for that. And then public domain stuff. In the USA, as most other countries, you automatically own a copyright or on something as soon as you commit to a tangible medium, like you actually buy the actual CD. So, but it's actually in it. So it's like if you buy the Metallica CD, you own that specific copy of what you bought. That's public domain. So you're not supposed to share that stuff. All right. So where do I find it? Where do I find software? Let's cover that. You simply Google download Linux and then the version number. Okay? Easy, easy, easy to do, folks. So if I do, download Linux Kali. There it is, first one. If I replace Kali with Fedora, it'll come up right away. If I do SUSE, it'll come up right away. This by far is the easiest way to download software. So that's where I want you guys to be able to go get this stuff. I used to, as you saw my hard drive, I used to be a hoard of all of the different operating systems and versions of this, that, and the other. I am, as hard as it is for me to let go of my junk, I have been going through hard drives and just deleting stuff. And I'm actually a liar. I never delete anything. I just copy it to another terabyte drive and put it on a shelf. Well, but I really want to delete it. But I keep it in the other terabyte drive because I'm like, I might need that someday. I never do. Because I just go download the latest and greatest. All right. Next, when you guys install all of these different versions of the operating systems, here's what I want you to think about. Okay, as you go through it, this is checklist stuff, folks. This is really, really good for test prep. And as you go through the different versions, I want you to think about these things per version, and that'll really solidify all of the things that you need to take away from this course. First of all, pre-installation. How are you going to install this? What is your installation type? Which, see bullet number 2. Are you going to use a CD or DVD, ISO files, live CDs, net installs, or over a network? So let's talk about those real quick. Like I said, I really am not creating and burning CDs anymore. I've got sleeves. Actually, I have a sleeve right here, and I've got 6 more of these sleeves of DVDs that it's like I haven't burned a DVD in probably a year. So I'm going to end up throwing away a sleeve of DVDs. I don't know who's using CDs anymore either, for that matter. I just don't really play with CDs. Any ISO file that... No, they are not the same, and I'll explain them in a second, Tommy. So I would say download your ISO file and then use some sort of free, DVD burner software you can get from like download.com or something, and then you can turn your ISO files into a CD. So an ISO file for our purposes is going to be a virtual CD. Yes, great Frisbees. Although I don't use DVDs for Frisbees, Mike, I've now moved on to cheddar cheese. Then live CDs. Live CDs are basically bootable instances of a CD, and I would even put a bootable USB drive into that. You can find simple instructions on how to create bootable USBs. Not entirely different, but I would say the live CD. The reason why an ISO file and creating a live CD is helpful is because you don't have to interfere with the integrity of whatever machine that you are using. So I used to carry around the pack of CDs with me, and then I got tired of carrying them. And I would have a whole bunch of live CDs, and I would stick them in my CD-ROM, reboot my computer, and then choose and point my computer to the CD-ROM, boot from there, and I'm literally running the software off of my CD-ROM. So we are going to be doing the equivalent of live CDs in the virtual environment, but instead of physical media, we need ISO files to do that. So if you can follow along with the ISO files that or the ISO lab that I'll show you here coming up, it's basically the equivalent of live CDs. The benefit of a live CD is you are not permanently installing it on that computer. So if you just want to eject your CD and reboot your computer, you go right back to your Windows operating system, and you don't have to interfere with it. I know plenty of people that are actually using government-furnished equipment with all of their encryption and this, that, and the other things, and they basically shut down the machine, stick in a CD-ROM, boot to it, and they're running live CDs on it. They'll do whatever they want. They can't read your Windows NTFS permission because it's encrypted, but you can use another hard drive or something like that, and it doesn't interfere with the integrity of that host operating system. Whereas if you do an ISO install or a CD or DVD, that does suggest, and exactly, Mark, Backtrack or Kali is a great example of this, and I would say start there with the live CDs, except the only difference, Mark, is that we're just going to do them through ISOs and VMware, so we don't have to carry around CDs. But you are 100% absolutely correct. So the 3 so far: DVDs, CDs, ISO files, and live CDs. Now, Tommy had a question about net installs versus NFS. When you go through the installs, a good handful of the installs will actually prompt you at some point in the install and say, would you like to connect to the internet and download all of the latest and greatest stuff for this operating system? And if you look at the subtitles in the link, you will see net INST right next to that. So as you're installing the live CD or to the operating system, it goes out, reaches out to the internet, grabs all the latest and greatest, downloads those with it, and then installs it, continues the install. The requirement here is that you must have a network connection, because how are you going to get to the internet to go get the latest and greatest files if you don't even have an internet connection? So sort of a prerequisite there. Next, NFS. NFS is an internal file sharing server or server application in a Linux world. So that's kind of the, what do they call it in Windows? It's oh crap. It's I can't think of the name of it. In Windows, you can basically script your installations, and you can say go download the files from an internal server, and you can script it. And there's a name for it. I just can't think of the name. Well, no, not the file system type. It's the actual, I guess, diskless installation is what you would call it, something close to that. Where you used to have a batch file of, I guess now you can do it with, well, you're on the right track, you know, Michael, with PowerShell and sysprep and things like that. But we used to use basically an answer file and would go out to server, point to server, download the files, and then all of the prompts that you would actually have to put into, we would actually have an answer file that would go along with that, and you know, it allowed. And well, not so much MSI because that's more for like your operating system's already installed, Jason. This is actually for just the installation piece. You guys are killing me. I'm killing myself. It's no, not network monitor. What the hell is it called? Network. Well, I don't know. I don't remember. This is how long ago I've been in MCSE. I don't even remember anymore. It's irrelevant. Windows does have an equivalent to it. I just can't think of the damn name of it. And it'll come to me probably as soon as I get off the call. What MSIs are for are operating systems that are already there that allows you to do an installer for a particular type of version. This is actually a network install that you can choose. You basically just point it to a server and use an answer file to answer all the prompts for you. So it allows you to basically do it. I just can't think of the name of it. Typo. You have to choose the right one. Pre-execute. Thank you, Michael. There you go. Pre-execution environments, booting. It points up to the network, grabs an operating system, and drags it down. By the way, Michael, I was nowhere close to that, so thank you. I probably wouldn't even thought of that until next week. That's one of those things that just comes back to you, and you're like, oh, darn, got it 2 weeks later. You have to choose the right one here, or this is not going to work. All right, so in the installation files, you basically, big decision here, folks. You have to choose what your processor type is. Are you on the x86 platform, or are you on the AMD? Are you using 32-bit, or are you using 64-bit? Failure to choose the right ISO here. That's correct, Mike. Failure to choose the right one here, your install will fail. I can more than likely tell you that from the newbie's point of view, if you're go to install this stuff and it's not working and it freezes or blue screens or whatever the case is, you probably have the wrong version of the files. And occasionally I go to a website, I download the software, and just, you know, trying to work fast and get the download started, I click on the wrong version. And you know, I need the 64-bit or I need the x86, and I grab the AMD. As a matter of fact, I think I actually saw that. On my ISOs, notice I have an AMD 64 here. I'm sorry, AMD. I really should have an x86 version of that since I'm using Windows. Or at least for this particular operating systems I'm on. You're more than likely going to need the x86. If your computer is 64-bit, you get the 64-bit. If you have a 32-bit operating system and you go try to get a 64-bit, don't expect that to work. All right, you can't go the other way around. You can go from 64 back down to 32, but you can't go to 32 up to 64. Also, burn the ISOs. Here's some free software for you guys. If you're already using something like Nero or Easy CD Creator, that will be absolutely more than fine. I think I'm using Magic. Here, actually, I just saw it. Free DVD ISO burner. It's just for ISOs. And then I probably have a couple more in here. Image burn is a good one. Something like those. And any one of these can take your ISO file that you download, and then you know, if you did need to create a CD, you can use any one of these. So that's why we have those. Next, you have to choose file systems. All right. We are going to go into much greater detail of this later. For right now, you just need to know the basics. And I would probably say ext3 is probably going to be what you're going to do here. Technically, there's ext2, 3, and 4, and there are slight differences between them. Yeah, I guess my little note here says ext4 was released at the end of 2008. It's just not mainstream yet, even though it's 2014 now. The most common file system is probably ext3. To compare this to Windows, I also will try to compare things to Windows whenever I can remember what they are. In the Windows world, you would have had FAT, FAT32, and NTFS. You guys remember that stuff? And the ones were multiple file systems and how they've changed over time, and actually multiple versions of NTFS. You can kind of think of it similarly. It's not a linear, relationship between one versus the other, but it is. It's kind of close to the same line of thinking. Yes, ext is the extended file system, right? Other types of Microsoft ones would be VFAT as well. Nobody uses that. And then JFS and Reezer. Other ones that are out there, not entirely critical. You do need to know, I would pay attention to this little note here. You need to know the journaling file systems, like these last three. These are considered journaling file systems, right? So that's sort of testable on your practice tests. So JFS, this is IBM's. Reezer, another one, right? That's specifically for SUSE. And then XFS. This is another one that's out there. More than likely, you're probably not going to use that one. Not to say that you couldn't. It's out there. You should know about it. Not really popular. I would say, if I had to guess, 80% plus operating systems that I ever deal with are going to be ext3 file systems, and you're going to leave it at that. We will go into the details of these later, and I do have some labs planned where I'll show you the differences between ext2, 3, 4, and things like that. But for right now, rule of thumb, ext3. Stick with that. You'll be fine for now. Next, partitions. It's probably a good idea that you run multiple partitions, especially if you're in the server side of things. Linux is pretty particular about two particular file systems that it wants to use. And I separated these down here. Your root partition and your swap partition. And when you go through the install, you're going to need two, a root and a swap. And there's some tools here coming up in which I will show you to get these operating systems installed. It's not like you have to really think too much about this now. Later on, once we get into the operating systems, we'll go back and we'll look at, swap on and make FS and things like that. For now, I just need you to, when you go through the install, if you don't have a swap partition, it's going to tell you need a swap partition. All right? Yeah, separate log. Michael's got good points here. A separate space in your var logs. More likely your log files for integrity purposes. You want to get those off and into a protected area, either on a separate server for the purpose of like IDS, Tripwire, or something like that, or syslog. But if it's just native to the operating system, you absolutely could put all your log files We're not going to get into those details now. I just want you to get the install done first, and then we'll go figure out how to go fix all that stuff later. And yeah, Tommy, you bring a good point. We will take a break here in just 1 second. Let me just finish this, and then I promise we'll take a quick 10-minute. As you go through the install, as you get to a point where it's going to say pick your file system, and it's going to want these, the root and the swap. If you're following along here, you're going to have to configure these correctly. Okay. If you don't have a swap partition and you try to click next, it's going to tell you, hey, we need a swap partition. Okay. You can use multiple virtual hard disks. You can use different partitions on the same hard disks. Also things like quotas. If you're going to store any sort of user files, those should be on their own partition. We're also going to go into detail on how to mount partitions or other hard drives, or link space is how the easy way to look at it in the Linux world, and things like that. All right. So your guys are just at a perfect point, so where I can jump into the hands-on activities. So let's take a break here for a quick 10 minutes. And if you have any sort of questions, write them down, because when we come back, I'll do a quick Q&A just to make sure everybody's on the same page, and then I'm going to go demo, installs basically, and show you guys how to install this stuff. So I got 8:03 on the clock. Break. 8:03. Return here 8:13. And go. 8:13 I start talking, folks. And then we'll pause the recording. All right. If not, you can watch this on the reruns. All right, so now we are going to go in to the different images. So let's start basically here, the hands-on. And I've got a handful of things in here. Actually, before I do that, I probably should rearrange the order of this. This is the type of stuff you figure out when you're actually doing it. I should actually have the download section prior to the hands-on. So let's cover this actually first. I try to make your lives easier here. My nose is running. Excuse me 1 second. Thank you. And we did start recording again. All right, so first thing, go ahead, download VMware Player. I have a link to it, or just search for download VMware Player on Google. If you want to install Ubuntu, I have the download image from. Use VMware Player to connect to the virtual CD-ROM, which is the ISO. That's what I'm going to show you, and then boot to the VM. And so your jobs here, your homework, okay, I'm going to show you this once, and we can realistically do these on any one of these. Here's your OpenSUSE, you got your Debian, you got your Slackware, you got your Kali. I got all the links to most of this stuff, Metasploitable, and things like that. So that's where you actually find the stuff. Once we have the software to two components here, you're in a VMware Player and an ISO. Two things that you guys need to run this on any Windows system. And then we can realistically get into the hands-on labs activity. So let's start from the absolute basics. Let's pretend like none of us have ever installed any of this before, and let's go play with some stuff. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go find my VMware Player. Assume that this is the first time that I've ever clicked on this button. So, and actually, funny enough, this is the first time I clicked on this button. Select yes to your agreement after you've installed VMware Player. Go ahead and click OK, and you are going to get to basically a screen like this. Apparently, I've got a new VMware Player. I'm not going to do that now. You guys, if you download the latest and greatest, you already have that. You won't need to do that. And then basically we can open an existing machine, or we can download it. All right, so if you click download here, just to show you, it links you basically to the solutionexchange.vmware.com site. And you've got a whole bunch of options here, Fedora 14. So this isn't entirely a waste of time. That's a free VM. What do you mean free VM, Tommy? And let me back up while you type your question. If one has 8 GB of RAM using Windows 8.1, do you recommend installing several concurrent Linux versions? And how much RAM? Okay, that's a good question, Mike. You could go off of the minimum hardware requirements for whatever virtual operating system that you use. I've got, I'm pretty sure, 8 gigs of RAM on this machine, and I normally set each VMware to 2 gigabytes, and that's normally more than enough to run 2 or 3 of them concurrently. So, you could probably scale that down a little bit. I will tell you that if I wouldn't run 3 installs at once, because between the paging on the disk and if you do have limited memory, it will slow down the process. I would personally try one at a time with like 4 gigs of RAM, and just to get through the process, and then do another one, and then do another one, and then do another. So I would actually do these asynchronously, meaning one at a time, not actually all together. Later on, you can tweak the VMs, and you could crank back the 4 gigs of RAM down to like 2, and then see how it runs. If it becomes unresponsive, freezes a little bit, you might want to give it a little bit more. If you're running 2 or 3 VMs, because you got decent processor, decent memory, decent hard drive space, you're really going to have to play with it. But I would say start at around 2 gigabytes per VM file. VMware Player is free to download. Otherwise, the other VMware products are free to try. And no, VMware is not open source. It's actually closed source, but VMware people, they give you a free version so that you can just play the stuff. I don't know when exactly VMware Player came out. It's been a couple of years now. I haven't really used VMware desktop for like 3 or 4 years now, so it's been at least 3 or 4 years, I'm guessing. All right, so you do have some virtual applications, apparently a whole bunch of them, Ubuntu, Fedora, etc., etc., etc. You can get stuff from here, or you can just go to the horse's mouth and download it right from there. Otherwise, you can select your browse button and go get your VMware files. This assumes that you already have a VMware image actually already set up. And then, actually, what do I want here? Where the hell is the create new image? Well, normally there's a menu here, so I got to get past this first screen. Huh. Let me try to cheat. See, normally you get an image from my nose is running. Normally you get an image like this, and then what you can do is you can see VMware. This is still VMware Player. I don't know why the first screen won't get you, to this screen. I apparently got to do something magical. But the cool part is what I'm going to do is just I'm getting around that first screen. So I just open up an existing virtual machine, and then I'm going to edit the virtual machine settings, and I'm just going to go grab another CD-ROM image. So in this case, I opened up my Kali image. I'm going to go to the CD. Let me do that again so everybody can see it. Open up any VMware application, then click Edit Virtual Machine Settings. Or you can select Clone this virtual machine if you want to. For right now, we're going to do Edit. That'll bring up the hardware options, and basically you're going to have to set your CD-ROM to a virtual CD, which is your ISO file. and that's where we would actually use the ISO image. If you do have physical media like a CD, DVD, you basically would have to choose this option here. Why? Why me? Why can't I do this? Of course. All right, so we're going to do this another way. All right, so if you have an existing one, you know why? Here's why I can't do it. It's paused. So that's why. So what you have to do here, that's stupid, I should have thought of that. Right-click, New Virtual Machine. Welcome to the New Virtual Machine wizard, and I'll show you guys how to walk through this the first time. So because I had to bounce around real quick, let's just do a quick recap. Is everybody following along with me? Everybody know where I'm at? Okay, sorry. Just wanted to make sure, because whenever I bounce around, I have ADD moments, and I just want to make sure I didn't lose anybody in my bouncing around, but it's a ADD thing. So, typical, create a new virtual machine with the most common devices, all right, and you can choose what you want, or custom environment, choose if you need, okay, there's your prompt. Choose this option if you need to create a virtual machine with additional devices or specification configurations, or if you need to create a virtual machine with specific hardware compatibility requirements. We probably can do just typical here. Here you can select Linux. If you click on, your drop down here, there's, truth be told here, I've never noticed a difference in choosing any single one of these. If you do not have anything, I mean, the easiest way to do this is, oh, that's a good one. That's a Mac question. Hey, Michael, can you answer that real quick? Do you know if Mac OS X or 10, is there a VMware player for that, or do you use that? You probably already beat your head against that wall. Do you know how to answer that? Okay, so the quick answer is for Pam, would be for you to use VirtualBox. Thank you. Lifesaver. And Pam, if you email me, I can get you the basics on how to do that and walk you through that, since that will be a derivative of this. I don't think you really need to go out and buy a new laptop for this. You just use the VBox, and that'll probably be fine. I'm going to choose a weird operating system here, so I would just say there are certain settings and defaults that are associated with anything on this list. So if you can match it, because it just makes things work a little smoother. But like, for example, if you want to install Kali, I would just choose Other and be done with it. So there's really no harm. It just, this preload settings in the next couple of screens. So, try to match it if you can. Definitely keep it to Linux. If you didn't know anything, you could also leave it as Other, because you can just select Other and Other there. VMware Fusion Pro, but that's not free. Jason brings up a good point. VMware Fusion Pro is not free, but VirtualBox. Yeah. All right, so, yeah, but Jason, my point here is if you don't know, there's no harm in choosing Other. You can leave it generic. It just doesn't preload the next couple of screens to tweak to that version. So, I mean, I've selected, Linux, Red Hat, gone through the next here, left all the defaults, and actually ran the Kali image. No problem whatsoever. You just, you're going to go where before I was into the edit settings. They're just pre-customized, I think, for like minimum hardware requirements. I could be wrong there, but that's about the effect of what's different. So I'm going to try something different here. I'm just going to say Other, all right, and then click Next. Here's where you actually get to name it accordingly, because what you name here in this virtual machine name, that's what you will see here. So today I am going to install OpenSUSE in GNOME. All right. So we'll do OpenSUSE SUSE GDE. All right, you can name it anything you want here. It's not, and you can change it later too, truth be told. Networking connection. So do you want to connect or do you not want to connect to something else? This is more of a VMware virtual thing than anything else. I can shut off my network connection. Probably not a good idea. I can use my Windows and my virtual machine and connect only to my Windows host. Set better idea than no network. Especially if it tries to go get files, that'll fail. Any net install, if you do no network connection and you try to do a net install, it will fail, I promise. Host only is your better option here. Then you have to choose bridged or NAT. Okay, bridged environment, basically it acts as another host on the network. So if you literally want to pretend in the virtual world that you are another host on, your on your network, the way to think about this is instead of an operating system and running a virtual environment on top of it, in bridge mode, they go side by side. So it's literally like, host A versus host B as opposed to host A, Windows, and then host B in the virtual world. And then NAT is a translator through the operating system, so it's also in that top to bottom configuration, so it goes through, everything goes through and out. My favorite here is if I had to choose what I would like to do, your ideal the choice here would always be bridged, but there are cases where you actually have to switch over to NAT. 80% of the time I'm doing bridged, another 15% of the time I'm doing NAT, and then occasionally I'll switch over to host only, and then even sometimes if I'm working with malicious software, antivirus, or malicious code, exploitation tools, DDoS tools, something like that, I set it to basically virtual only, and then that only does that particular, it's nothing. You're not networked at all. So we're going to select bridged here, click on next. Here's where you can do your hard drive capacity. I would say you can crank these up probably larger. Go 16 gigs here. But what I want you to do is split the disk into 2 gigabyte files. What that does is it creates 8 16 gig files, or 8 2 gig files, and I want to show you what that looks like at the end of the day. So if I come in here and I go to, I think Kali is like that, you see where I've got all of these virtual disks? I'm not using, actually they're all set to 320 kilobytes, which is really just the size of the file, but I'm only using this first virtual drive, which is the Kali VDMK. These are, so it's, do you want to create one massive file or do you want to create additional virtual ones? For copying and pasting purposes, and especially in the virtual environment, you absolutely always select this split the disk into 2 gigabyte files. So you can do whatever you want here, split it into 2 gig files. It'll only grab the additional space as it needs it. Okay? Any questions so far? By the way, I never use this option here, allocate the disk space now, because what that'll do is it'll create one 16 gigabyte file, whether you use 16 gigs or not. It'll reserve that much space. Any questions so far? Well, for simplicity here, I'm actually just going to do 10 gigs. It's fine. Okay. All right. And then virtual machine created successfully. You don't have to show that again if you don't want to. Click close, and now we have open SUSE. Yeah. Well, again, I actually want to teach you guys. I actually want you to instead of just clicking next, 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 and next, and being blind to this stuff, Eric. Actually, kind of want you to know, why we do things the way that we do things. So you always ask questions if you're like, what the hell did he just do? So that was just a little quick, tutorial on the virtual environment. Now that we've got a new image that's not in pause like Kali was, now if I go to my CD-ROM, all right, you can see it's set to auto detect. Okay. Now go into edit settings, edit virtual machine settings, click on your CD-ROM, use an ISO image, click browse to wherever you kept your image, which for me is going to be on my virtual hard drive. And then pick your ISO, and then let's do, since we're going to be spending a whole lot of time in GNOME, I'm actually going to do KDE just for giggles. Click on open there. Now that effectively would be the equivalent in the virtual world to it versus the physical world. Physically, I just stuck my, open my CD-ROM, stuck a CD in, close my CD-ROM, and reboot the computer. That's the difference between a live CD versus doing this in the virtual world. These are also really good here to do it this way because, especially if you want to, I want you guys to do some consulting out of this gig here. There's times where you actually need to install a specific version of software and migrate it to other software or something like that. All the time I do that stuff in VM. I test it out, my little virtual environment first, make sure that I can do it, then I do it in the production. So I just do a dry run here in the virtual world. So again, all the thing I've done here is basically stick a CD-ROM in, click OK, and then you can go ahead and notice a big mistake here. Notice my memory, 384 megabytes. Had I clicked play here or play up here, I'd have been in a world of hurt. So I need to go back in here, take my memory. Let's go ahead and crank that up. And we'll start here at 2 gigs. That should be plenty enough for this exercise. So the virtual settings that I have here, I've gave myself 2 gigs of memory, 10 gigs of hard drive space. I got my virtual CD-ROM set up, or the ISO file. Who cares about the CD-ROM, but you actually could set a CD-ROM image too. We're not going to do any of that, but it could be done. We're just going to use a physical device and set it to auto-detect, which I don't even have a floppy. So if you want to change your Ethernet settings from that to bridged or back and forth, you could do that here. If you want USB, especially USB 2.0, click that. Display, I always leave that as auto-detect. And the number of processors, if I want to use 1 or 2, I'm actually going to switch that now that I'm actually here and paying attention to it. I'm going to switch it to 2. And for the record, I actually have 4. All right, so I'm on a quad 4. I'm basically switching this. The reason, pay attention, folks, the reason why I did this is because I'll get better performance using the equivalent of a quad 2 versus a single processor. But you can, if you wanted to, assign virtual machine just to consume one of the quads if you want to. I want better performance, so I switched that over to 2 as well. Click on OK here, then basically start this virtual machine. Okay, you will get a warning here. Hey, cannot connect the floppy. Guess why? I don't have one. Okay, that's fine. And then at this point, here we go. Now, I want to point out something. I'm going to just click in here and go down and up real quick just to stall on this option. Something you guys, if you've never used the VMware player, I want to point something out. I want everybody to look closely at my mouse. If I just hover my mouse, which is right now in host mode, if you can see it, if I click inside anywhere inside this main box here, inside this window, I effectively take my mouse from my physical world into the virtual world, and I just clicked and it went away. So the only thing I can do right now is click my up and down arrows. Okay? If I want my mouse back, hit Control-Alt, it comes back. Last thing that I want you guys to do is go, where'd my mouse go? All right, and if you've never used virtual machine before, that could be very, very frustrating. So that's a little tutorial of the virtual world. All right, so does that help? Does that help get you guys set up in the virtual world? From here, it's just next, 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 next. All right. All right. So Pam's in here. Mike, thank you. Okay. I'm going to click inside this again. My mouse goes away, so that means in the virtual. Now I can only use the up and down arrows. And I basically have some choices here. I could do a memory test, but hey, this is the virtual world. You know, don't really need to do that. If you really got some time to kill, you can watch the memory test run. It is not exciting stuff. If you have trouble sleeping, watch the memory test. It's one of those types of things. What that will tell you is if you have memory problems. Here, it's not really going to help. I could boot from a hard drive, a physical disk, which in the virtual world it thinks the physical disk is from inside the virtual world. It literally is thinking that it has access to their next hard drive, but because we're in the virtual world, if you select hard drive here, it's actually going to grab. Well, actually, let me get you guys in the relative place here. It's actually going to grab the virtual file, your first VMWare file. So the first one. Make sense, folks? Okay. Now, that's the equivalent of a physical hard drive. Okay. So I can boot from a hard disk, memory check. I can check my installation media. This is, frankly, folks, another waste of time. If you are using a physical CD and your CD is all scratched up, and you want to see if it works or not, you can click Check Installation Media. Since we're using an ISO file, this is absolutely useless and a waste of our time because if the ISO was bad, we wouldn't have got this far. That's a little insight there. These are the first two. So in my document here, open the live CD versus installation. If I go back to the document, here's exactly what those two files are. Live CD versus what it thinks is the CD-ROM. It's those two right there. And for the sake of doing that next time, I'm just going to rearrange those. All right. Now, I could just do a live CD right here and operate from that. But frankly, that's not really any fun. So we're actually going to do this. Other things that I could do right now, I could do an F2. If for those of you that want to do this in Espanol, you are more than welcome to do it. If you want to install this in squiggly lines, you are more than welcome to do it. If you want to try to do your best base Java language, you can do that too. I'm going to stick with English though. So just know that is there. Also, if you hit F3, video mode, default at this point. We don't have any video drivers. They were already set to auto-detect anyway. I would just leave it at the default at this point. You will be able to change this stuff later. But keep in mind, if we just wanted to install, OpenSUSE or any operating system in pure text only mode, you could do it. Okay. We're just going to exit out there and leave it as the default. Other things that you can do here is an F4, which is your kernel, and you can have safe mode settings, no ACPI or no local APIC. So, quick detour. What is an ACPI? All right, this is one of those things where you go, well, I don't remember that. ACPI. Okay. ACPI, Advanced Configuration Power Interface. In computing, ACPI specification provides an open standard for device configuration and power management by the operating system. So what this specifically does in our world is it tells us our power consumptions for plug-and-play BIOSes as a multiprocessor systems. The difference in choosing these settings here is if you had a physical machine and not a virtual machine, some cases if you mess this up, your physical machine would run a little bit hotter and that could actually overheat and freeze. In the virtual world, we just leave it as the default. Okay, so this is power management is the quick answer here. All right. We're not going to mess with any of that, but we could change it. So what we're going to do is click inside the window again and click on installation, and it's going to say loading the Linux kernel. And again, please ask any question you have, because we're going to have a little bit of time here to kill in some of these next dialog boxes. Oops. Hold on, I'm trying to split screen here. So here you go. The first thing that it does in this environment, copies files. Also here, while I got a little bit of time to kill, I will show you guys in the bottom right-hand corner, if you want quick shortcuts to your virtual machine settings, you have them here in the bottom right-hand corner. There was a minor failure there. If anybody caught that, there was a minor failure there, but let's see if that's a game changer or not. Probably not. So that was a minor failure, but I'll show you guys how you can check that stuff later. I'm going to let this hang out here for a second and go back to my thought. You can double-click on your CD-ROM. That'll basically open up the properties of your CD-ROM. Not something you want to mess with now. You have a hard drive down here. That basically opens up your hard drive settings. Not something you want to mess with. And none of this is stuff that you... The only thing that I mess with while the operating system is actually on is my Ethernet settings. Sometimes I change from bridge to NAT. I will disclose that I have changed from bridge to NAT, and things have not worked. I've actually had to shut down, reboot for these settings to take effect. So you try not to change them if at all possible. Sometimes they work. Most of the times they work. A good 80-90% of the time they work. But there's always that one case where it's like, why isn't it doing what I want to do? And I have to reboot. So I just want to point out that there's some things here in the bottom right. Otherwise, I am going to switch my view here. Other things that we can do in the virtual environment, check out these three buttons here. You have this menu here, show or hide the slide bar. What this does, it gets rid of that right there, okay, which I kind of like. And then once you're in the virtual environment, you really don't need these menus up here either. So quick switch. That gets it in full screen, and then you could literally switch back and forth between the images. This is a very convenient view for working with multiple machines at once. And so you may, if you get to this mode, please pay attention to this one. You're like, where'd my menu go? If you drag your mouse all the way to the top and hang out, you get a little drop down. And then your other one is a full screen mode. And so there's actually a pin button. Actually, let me go back over here. There's a way to pin that, but I don't know if I can do that. Let's see, where the hell is it? There's a way to pin this so it stays up all the time and doesn't auto-disappear. I just don't remember what the setting is. Not that that's entirely important to switch to now, but just FYI. All right, so I'm going to leave it at this in this screen here just so you guys can see everything. I assume everyone can see my full desktop. Is that correct? Okay, please and thank you. Okay, first thing. And again, all of these operating systems have the same flavor to them. You're going to click next a bunch of times, figure out some stuff, and eventually you'll have an operating system. So here's your OpenSUSE licensing agreement. You have to choose the language that you want. Again, we're going to leave it as English, but you can change it there. Leave your keyboard language as English as well, unless you're really good at Arabic. Click Next. And it walks you through here. This is nice because basically what we have here is time zones. All right, so as long as you click on that guy over here, if you click on another part of the country, it will. You can see the time zone stuff bouncing around. You can change this stuff later if you want. I'm just going to leave it as Eastern. Eastern New York. Plus you have drop downs here. You can choose the country over here. or you can, use your click buttons over here. Also, you can set the hardware clock to universal time code. That's fine to leave now. Click Next. Suggested partitioning. Hey, please pay attention. Leo said you would see this later. Here it is. Create a swap volume called device SDA1, device SDA2, and create a volume called device SDA3. Notice the size. My swap partition, 2 gigs. The root volume was 5 gigs, and then I have another volume of 2.5 gigs. Notice the default in this particular version, what it's going to format the file system as. Everybody see that? In this case, because it's the newest and latest and greatest open SUSE, it actually is smart enough to say, hey, you can use ext4. Not all of them will do that. And there's nothing, if you do, go to another version and pick ext3, that's fine for now. I'll show you how to upgrade and change and format and do that stuff later. Otherwise, just leave it as the default. Create LVM-based proposal. Here, so what is LVM? So let's say, oh, I don't know, I don't remember, I wasn't in class, I forgot, my dog ate it. What is LVM in Linux? LVM is a tool for logical volume management, which includes allocating disks, striping, mirroring, and resizing local volumes. You guys already know what that is, don't you? But you've heard of that before. If I click on Windows, go to My Computer, and select Manage, here, guess what the Windows equivalent is? Who can answer that before I get to it? Anybody know? Where am I going? Tin, 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 tin. I'm stumping students. Tin, 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 tin. I gotta wait for the computer thing to pop up here. Disk management. Disk manager. Eric got it. There you go. Disk management. They're not device manager. I shouldn't have clicked on that. Disk management. It's kind of the equivalent of that. So what I like to do is, because I do have a Windows background, anytime I can relate one to the other, that's an easier way for you guys to learn what the equivalent is. Okay, so in Windows we use disk management, which is where you can do, whatever the operating system supports, striping, mirroring, RAID 5s, etc., etc., etc. All right. In Linux, let's go back to this world over here. That's called create a Linux volume management based proposal. You can also encrypt right here. If I choose to encrypt, you can actually choose this password. The only thing that I will tell you about this, if you choose a password, write it down. Preferably on your underwear, because chances are next time you need it, you'll have the same underwear on. Okay? Don't forget to write this password down. Nothing happens 5 years from now and you're like, oh man, what was that password again? Okay? We're going to hit cancel here, because I'm not going to encrypt and I'm not going to use an LVM. We'll cover the advanced partitioning tools like gparted or parted and things like that later. Also, propose a separate home partition. If I choose that, I get a home volume as well. And here the home volume is going to be /home, and that's going to be formatted with ext4 as well. If I undo that, please note that option goes away. And actually, there's one other thing that I wanted to point out here. Notice that says YAST here. No problem, Jason. I'll see you on the reruns, okay? If you have any questions, give me a call. I do realize, it's probably time for you to get out of work here and you need to get on the road. So we got about a half hour, 45 minutes in the end of class, so you need to watch just the last half hour, 45 or something like that, okay? Yes, this is yet another software tool, and it's number 2, so welcome to the crazy Linux language. It's just another software tool. All right, so that's what YAST stands for. We're not going to create the LVM. We're just going to use the defaults for now, which is your root and your swap. Remember I told you root and swap. At a minimum, you need a root and swap. You can do more. You don't have to do them here. You can change them later. If you know what you need and you know what your requirements are, please define them here. But if they change or you need to do it later, you certainly can do that as well. All right. And then create a partition setup, import a partition setup, or edit a partition setup. So if we click edit partition setup here, notice what we got. I can specify my hard drives. I got a virtual, I got a Linux swap. Notice the dev SDA. We'll go over these naming conventions later. You just need a root and swap at this point. If you wanted to do raids, you could set that up here. This is another export partitioning thing. If you're doing NFS, you want to point to an NFS share. Now remember, one of our installation options is, two network installation. One is net installs, and then two is your NFS share. Guess what? Here's your NFS settings. Well, actually, here's the settings. You would add that in. You basically, the format of the naming convention. So where's the NFS server home? What's the remote directory? Is it NFS 4? And then if you want to mount that, where do you want to mount that? And that basically goes out to the network, creates, links that network drive to your computer, and then it assumes you're, for all intents and purposes, running it from a file on your local machine, even though it's really over the network. So here is the NFS settings. You got temporary file system volumes. Actually, forget what BT RFS actually stands for. Not that that's important here. And then you can, if you go to settings, you can choose if you want, hey, check this out. You guys may have seen this. EXT2, EXT3, 4, XFS, and BT RFS, which is just one of many file systems, okay? So I'm actually going to go back here. I'm not going to edit the partition setup here. I'm going to try to just go here, and I'm going to click Next, just using the defaults, and let's see what happens. Create a user's full name. Enter your full name. I'm going to do Leo Dregier. It's case sensitive, so if you do capital L for Leo, it will capital L for Leo in the username, but notice the username here. All right, you would have to do that appropriate. I would highly recommend lowercase, because Unix is case sensitive, and it's a pain in the butt to realistically do a cap box or a shift all the time. So username in lowercase is probably preferred. Your password, I'm just going to do password. Use this password for the system administrator. For now, that's 5. If you want to receive system mail, you can, and then automatically log on. You could do that. I wouldn't, because what that does is just boots and auto logs in as this user, and what we actually want is we actually want to actually log into the computer, not have it auto log in. And then the cool part here, check this out as well. The authentication method is local. We are going to authenticate this password that I put right here. This is going to be stored in the etc password file, and the password is going to be encrypted with SHA, which is integrity 512. If you want to change that, you can do that. Please note, for interoperable environments, this is very, very important. I can choose local authentication. In the Windows world, that would be going down to your security account manager on your local hard drive and pulling the password file from there. You can point to an LDAP server, Kerberos. I want you to think generic Kerberos here. I'm sorry, generic LDAP here, because you can also choose Windows. If you are going to join a Windows domain or something like that, please check the right setting, because LDAP and Windows are different. Microsoft's domain uses a Microsoft version of LDAP, and they're not entirely compatible. All right, we're going to use the local system, and our choices here are DES, MD5, or SHA. I'm actually going to do MD5 here. for the encryption type, because I can show you the password file later, and I'll show you what password looks like in an MD5 encrypted hash, and that's actually something that will be worth coming back to. Otherwise, in theory, the strongest one out of this is actually SHA 512. You know what? I can leave it as SHA. I can still prove my point with SHA 512 or MD5 later, so it really doesn't make a difference. All right, so Etsy password 512, leave as the defaults, whatever it is here, not going to affect us. And then go ahead and click Next. Password is too simple. It is based on a dictionary word. You have used only lowercase letters for the password. Really use this password? Now, for here in the virtual environment, you can just use password. Okay, that's the way all of my default images are. If I can use the word password, just for simplicity, use the password. For a production environment, clearly you're going to have password complexity requirements. Use something with a little bit of intelligence, meaning use a good password. I'm just going to select OK here, and basically it'll give me a summary of this and say, here's everything I chose about the system. It tells me my memory, my processor. Here's how I set up my partitioning. This is a nice summary slide here. How I'm booting. Later we'll talk about the different bootloaders, Grub or Lilo. We're actually using Grub at this, or SUSE uses Grub at this point as the default. We'll talk about those much later in the course. We can change those location, but notice boot from the master boot record is disabled, or you can select enable that. Boot from the root partition is enabled. You can disable that. Okay. Your locales basically mean like keyboard or input. Okay, Sonia. You got about a half hour on the video, so when you pick up the video, just watch the half hour. You should be fine. Okay, Sonia? Locale settings. This is, you know, basically your keyboard, the languages, and things like that. You can change them here if you missed it before. But then again, if you're doing this in Arabic at this point, you're already in a world of hurt if you don't know Arabic. You can change your time zones, you can change your user settings, and we can basically change, you can go right back to any of the previous screens that we were at. I will tell you that not all installs give you this option here. So this is actually very convenient for you to like hyperlink all the way back, so you don't have to click back. You can just click on System and be done. For now, these settings are fine. Click Install, confirm it, just in case you want to change your mind. Are you sure? Now's your final warning, and click on Install. At this point, you can watch the install or go take a nap. Okay, it's not going to take too long because we're in a virtual world. But if I was in a production environment and I already knew what I was doing, this is coffee time, or Red Bull, or smoke them if you got them. All right. At this point, folks, we're almost done. All we have to do is basically wait, and we're not going to, unless we comes really quickly. We're basically through 90% of what this is installs. I'll let the install finish. Reboot. Log in. That simple. So let's do questions. Tommy, this stuff making sense? Slightly different than what you saw before? How about Michael, Mark, John, Eric? Talk to me, folks.
One time I guess I did the root. Can you hear me? Testing. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can now. I can now.
Okay. All right. So one of the times I remember doing the root way too small, and I remember that in the middle of the installation it just stopped. I guess the root partition has to be the right size for the whole thing to install. Is that correct?
That's the equivalent of trying to fit 5 pounds of crap in a 2-pound bag. You needed more space. As soon as it filled the partition, bam, So you do need enough space to at least get through the install. Some of the things that we've done in the Kali image when we actually installed done, we didn't set up the partition sizes the right way. We were just next, rushing through the installs, and then we had to run like gparted or parted or something else like that to basically readjust the size. So if you've got enough hard drive space to actually finish the install, once you get into the new operating system, then you can use a partition manager and give yourself some more space. But if you didn't have enough to finish the install, you're basically dead in the water.
The size of that
Let me make sure I
partition
got everybody's comment.
vary based on the type of Linux.
You faded out there just for a second. Go ahead and speak again.
I said, does the size of the root partition vary based on the type of Linux version that you're using?
My gut feeling is it has to depend on how you set up VMware Player, actually. So remember in the VMware Player images where it said, choose Red Hat, choose Fedora, choose Ubuntu, choose something else? Depending on what we chose there, that would automatically depict how the defaults for the size of the virtual image. And if you which gave you defaults, and then when you actually went through the VMware Player configuration, if you didn't add more space, then you're kind of stuck with that once you boot to it. An easy fix would be to kill the install, go back to your VMware Player image settings, change it, create more and more hard drive space, and just start the install over again. Does that answer your question?
Yep. Thanks.
Okay. Tommy, I'll have to check to see why. Maybe, I blocked you. You should be on the distribution list. So I'll have to check, Tommy. Just if you don't mind, sir, please remind me just right at the end, and I'll do it as soon as I turn around. And then let's see, I missed one here. Michael says, will we need to have a specific version of Linux installed for the class? Yes and no. No, meaning I want you to explore at least 3 different versions and 3 different desktop versions, meaning KDE, GNOME, and XFCE. I want you to try 3 different desktop environments and 3 different base operating systems. I don't care which ones they are. Most of the stuff that we're going to do in here, after we get through a variety of installs, I'm probably just going to end up using the Kali image, just because as I go into a little pen testing mindset, the tools are right there for me. I don't have to install them. I can just do what I need to do. So to quickly answer your question, definitely Kali, but I want you to have some experience with multiple types, Fedora, SUSE. I'd say at a minimum, you're going to need Debian. You're going to need SUSE, the way that this course is aligned. It's good to have Ubuntu, and if you really want to start playing around, you can do like Fedora, Slackware. I mean, really just truly depends on what you want to do. I want you to install everything on this list from a instructor teacher point of view here. I want you to install everything on this list and compare the installs. Take some notes, right? Compare the screenshots here. Come on, give me my document. Here it is. It's coming. Okay. Lost it. Let me go back. Come on. Because I'm using my hard drive right now, it's kind of crapping out. I have to be patient, and I'm learning patience now. I don't like being patient. Whoa. And this actually could be causing problems for you guys on the conference call. Can you guys still hear me? Whoops. Hang on, guys. Hang on. All right, it looks like I'm coming back here. Quick check. Can you guys still hear me? Because like okay. Oh, my screen's borderline frozen here on my end, so hang tight here. There you go. All right, so I have to slow down a little bit. This is the install. Once the install, exactly, Eric, you got it. Once the install goes through, you know, it won't be nearly as bad. All right, I think I got my document back, but I actually forgot what the heck I was saying. Oh, the installation types. The objective here is to get you guys experience with different operating systems. So since I have all of the, the links to Ubuntu and all that stuff, take this opportunity to explore the stuff. I want you to get comfortable with Ubuntu. I want you to get comfortable. What we've done in one of the first times that I actually taught this class, I was actually using Backtrack. And I think I ran the first, half of the 5-day boot camp with Debian, and then I was like, this is all the same stuff that I would be doing in Backtrack. At the time, it was Backtrack before Kali came out, and what I did is I just used Backtrack for the rest of the class, and there was only a handful of things that were missing from one to the other. This is where your experience with the different operating system comes in play. All right, so try them. Again, if you go through all of these installs here, you're going to be fine. All right. I'm still going to let this run and probably let this run for, the next, I guess, hour or so. You'll get the idea. The only difference between now and finish install is probably less max headroom and interruptions. And just let it finish, let it do its thing, and then reboot and log in. And then go pick another operating system. Do it. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Especially my warriors here that you guys are prepping for the exam this time. What you guys should be doing is looking for test questions that specifically have to deal with installing. All right, because there's really nothing I can do here other than just sit and let this run. This might be a little painful for you guys. Maybe that'll help a little bit for processing. lesson learned to self. Doing an install here over a virtual machine can be painful. And through a webinar. There's too many things going on at once, even with 8 gigs of RAM. All right, other questions? Now, I would tell you guys a couple other things here as you guys basically over the next day or so, once you guys to practice some installs, here's what I would recommend. Download Ubuntu Studio. Reason being, it has the XFCE interface. You could download Kubuntu, which is Kubuntu, which uses the KDE interface. You could also do Debian, which uses GNOME or GDE. So with 3 operating systems, you can also get 3 desktop environments. I'd rather you do it that way if you have to save time, as opposed to installing 3 versions of GNOME or 3 versions of KDE. All right, because basically with this, you'll see the similarities and the differences. Now, for the sake of my computer is somewhat choking on this run, and then what we can do is when we pick up on the next class, we can go over some of the other specific hands-on that is related to installation. No, I did not say that. Here's your KDE. Debian, you can switch them if you want, but that's Kubuntu, and then Ubuntu Studio uses XFCE. Here are your 3. So here's 3 separate operating systems with 3 separate desktop environments. Does that answer your question? Yeah, try those. You can always, install more. Hopefully, I mean, you guys, after watching this install, minus the actual files copying from here on out, I've covered a really good portion of all of the differences between all of the different versions. You'll see different interfaces. You'll see. They'll look differently. You'll see certain options, but basically they all have the same workflow. So if you can install SUSE, you can install Debian. Debian. You can install Ubuntu. You can install Fedora. You only need to install 4 or 5 operating systems before you say to yourself, "Okay, I get it." Now, also, what I'll do here is I'll get you guys set up on my website, the Code of Learning, and I'll get you guys access to the test questions. This is not something that we need to do here in this class, but I will do that. I'll either send it to email tonight or tomorrow, and at this point, I'd rather you guys just get to the point where you could install. We can always come back, and I'm going to build in some test prep time into this course, so we'll actually spend some time doing test questions because the Warriors have already seen this class 1, so they're really just here to pick up tips and tricks and to refine for test taking. So different objectives here, just as a reminder. But what I'll do is once we get to the point where SUSE is installed, Debian's installed, etc., what I'll do is I'll come back in the next class and I'll pick up right at the hands-on pieces, because I want you guys to see, you know, parted versus G-parted versus, you know, let me scroll down here 1 second. Make FS. We're going to have to cover the actual file systems. But at this point, everybody in here should get to the point where you can get to a desktoping environment. These are the, Michael, good question. I forget, sometimes I'm not speaking in layman's terms, so thanks for reminding me. These are the different style desktop environments. An easy way to just to give you something to relate to here is think Windows XP versus Windows 8. Different desktop environments. Still Windows, just different ways of interfacing with Windows. Okay, there's not a lot of people that really like XFCE. I don't really mind it. I personally don't like the KDE versions. I think it's cumbersome and clunky. GNOME is also referred to as GDE, or the GNOME desktop environment. And so Debian, which is really what Debian and SUSE, which is what this course is written for, is basically GNOME. But let me rewind here for a second, Michael. The reason why I want you to use separate desktop environments, because I don't want you just to use GDE, and then let's say you have to go to work and you got to troubleshoot something, and somebody's got an XFCE interface, and then, you know, I'm not doing anything, Tommy. Don't worry about my screen right now. I'm simply just talking because my computer's freezing. I don't want you to get thrown off by the different desktop environments. There's a small learning curve with, you know, XFCE versus KDE versus GDE. You know, small differences, but I just want you to be familiar with that, but with the different desktop environments. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and wrap up the call here for tonight. Hopefully the recording's okay. And then what we'll do is we'll do like we'll start the next class with a post-installation wrap up, and that's where I'll cover, you know, files to reference, all the rest of the stuff in this document, like makefs, you know, swap on, all the stuff in red here. I'll cover that in the beginning of the next class, where I don't have to crash my computer for installs. And that would it's actually a good place for us to just call it a night, because at this point we're just watching files copy, or you're listening to me sound like Max, you know, Headroom. So let's go ahead and wrap up class for tonight. If you have any feedback or like to add anything or have any 2 cents, you're more than welcome to email me, please. You can pick up the phone, you can call me, or you know, basically monkey see, monkey do. Follow what I did here in this conference call. Try it on your own. Thank you, Tommy. I will do it. Dropbox. And I'll make sure I got all the emails out to everybody, and, you know, I do expect a little cleanup from this call, a couple emails, a couple questions. I try to give you guys a little bit more in a Q&A, but with my computer, you know, really just getting hammered right now, the best thing for me to do is just let the install run and then just pick up here where we left off. And it's only 10 minutes from 9:30 anyway. So, any questions, folks? Going once, going twice. Sold. All right, as soon as I get the videos, you know, exported, uploaded, downloaded, whatever I'm doing with them, I'll get them to you guys. Let's call it a night, and I'll pick you guys up on the next call. Thursday at 6:30.
Okay, good night, everyone, and thanks, Leo.
Thank you, sir. Tommy, as much as I do, I'm just going to turn around and try to see why you didn't get the Dropbox link. But no, just for the sake of my computer freezing, I'm just going to let it finish its install, and we can just pick up Thursday if that's okay. Thanks, Pam. All right, I'm ending the call. Thank you, guys. I'll see you guys next class.